dopamine, original reason we've got it, just to create the desire and the motivation to go out and pursue difficult activities that would keep us alive. So when you look at hunting or foraging for food or building shelter in the cold or finding new lands for us to live in and stuff like that, all these activities, dopamine would be like this motivating chemical. It would build in our brain when we were basically chasing down hard activities that would help our group to stay alive. And the biggest thing to understand about dopamine is whatever created us, you call it God or evolution or something put us here, it basically hardwired in that we needed to earn the experience of pleasure, because pleasure was such a hard thing to get hold of, hunting the food or whatever it may be. We had to be trained that if we put in loads of effort, we'd feel good afterwards. And that's how dopamine functions. The biggest difficulty we now have with dopamine is we figured out a lot of ways to get pleasure without
instant
any effort.
gratification. Yes.
And that's like the hardest thing for this dopamine system, because if you imagine like on a graph, like if a graph like slowly curved up, like say if you take something like exercise, when you start exercising, it's not like, oh wow, I feel amazing now I'm out on this jog. Typically at the beginning you actually feel a bit extra shit. It's like, wow, I'm very unfit at the moment. And then you start running, and then gradually throughout it you start to feel a bit better and you feel better, and your brain is literally in the pursuit of a goal and it's earning dopamine. And then late on in the run you feel pretty good, and afterwards you feel great. You've got that accomplishment feeling, but it's a nice gentle curve up and then a nice gentle curve back down. The biggest challenge we have now is we've invented a lot of things that will get the dopamine to that highest point very, very quickly. So the TikTok feed can do this.
TikTok, yes.
Yeah, TikTok is the absolute best fast dopamine thing society's ever created. China must be buzzing with that. And that's one of the challenges, because if something goes up really quickly, just like with the laws of physics of the world, if it goes up quick, it has to drop really quick. And we're all in these big fluctuating dopamine loops where we loads and loads of pleasure when we're on our phone or eating the junk food or whatever it may be. But when we come away from any of the quick dopamine, the dopamine drops, and then we sit there and we procrastinate, we feel lazy, and it can make us feel pretty anxious and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a little bit about dopamine.
So on dopamine so TikTok, I heard this a long time ago on the news. TikTok, the way that app is designed and the algorithm is designed, as soon as you open it, you're getting content. It's like you don't even have to give that click other than to open up the app.
Sure.
And that's like the difference of what makes TikTok so much more addictive than the other ones, is it just appears and then you're in the content loop. So like you go on Instagram, yeah, you might have a reel pop up, but then you got to turn on the sound, or you've got to scroll past a post, or you've got to read. So you're like kind of still doing, it's the little least amount of work you can, but TikTok, it's just
there's still a little bit of effort for sure.
Yeah.
And this is one of the challenges. Like I spend my life at these schools trying to convince kids to become addicted to YouTube, which is ridiculous that would be the solution. Obviously the solution would be less phones, but like for many that's not even an option. But YouTube, you still got to go find a video. You've got to watch that video for a couple minutes in order to figure out if it's going to be of value and interesting to your brain. Mm-hmm. And that loop is like the dopamine is, you're at least in the pursuit of some kind of goal. And TikTok is the opposite, as you say. It's just bang, straight to pleasure. And the difficulty is our brains are just learning machines, and our brains all know that now. So when we, I don't know, go to the bathroom and then you open your phone, you're like, how could I get pleasure? We know now to click TikTok because we know it's the fastest way to get hold of that feeling. And even me, like I'm someone that loves YouTube. I don't even love TikTok that much. And now my finger goes more towards TikTok because I know the speed and the pleasure, which is the tricky part of it. And TikTok is literally destroying the teenage brain. Like you just would not believe it. We train, I did like a tour around Switzerland last year, for a few months, training schools in Switzerland. And we got a load of data about their screen times and stuff, like anonymous data, so I could learn about the kids and give them the best training that we could. And we got data for the month of August because the training was starting in September. And your brain right now and anyone listening is trying to calculate a high number of a screen time, as I'm about to tell you. You're thinking, what is he going to say that's a high number? We saw average daily screen time of 20 hours a day on the phone for a whole month, 20 hours a day. And we saw average screen time, this was for about 150 14-year-olds, average daily TikTok was 14 hours a day of TikTok. 14 hours of that. Oh
my God.
Can you imagine 14 hours of that in your brain? And the dopamine just, so crazy, this TikTok addiction. So I'm not that opposed to it not existing.